Welcome to a special edition of the BumbleKast. I'm your host, Ian Flynn, the Bumble King, and joining me as always is my Bumble co-host, Kyle, JCRB Krause.
And joining us for the first time, Nezumi. Hello, Nezumi. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. So what brings you to the BumbleKast?
Oh, well, Sonic, probably. I think that's his name.
Yeah, a little blue rat.
Who could stand him, really?
True.
But yeah, I guess to give a little bit of an idea of who I am, I do YouTube video essays for the most part under the channel name NezumiVA, and other than that, I also do voice acting on the side, as the VA would probably imply.
I mean, I assumed, but, maybe you were from Virginia. I don't know.
I know some people from Virginia. Don't think I've ever been there, though.
That's a lovely state.
I'll take your word for it, Ian.
Okay. At least the parts I've driven through.
Well, yeah, there you go. I mean, if you're just driving through it, though, are you there or are you just passing through?
Considering how long it takes to get through those mountain roads, you're there. You're there.
Yeah, fair enough.
Nice.
So now that you're here, whatever shall we talk about?
Well, there are several things we could talk about. Obviously, we could talk about Sonic Frontiers today, though not a specific portion of Sonic Frontiers today. That is actually, it's not even out yet while we're recording this, right?
No, not yet. I don't believe
2 hours.
Yeah, I don't believe so. It's coming soon, but yeah.
I'm looking forward to buckling down with that after we're done here. But other than that, I actually have been going through a specific Sonic game very thoroughly lately because I'm actually making a video about it. So maybe let's talk about that for a little bit. Okay. Shadow the Hedgehog. What do you think about that?
I actually enjoyed it overall. I look back on it fondly.
Yeah, I kind of came down in the middle a little bit with it myself because when I was much younger, I think I was just disappointed by what it wasn't. But now, with a fresher perspective, some more years under my belt, I do think it still has a lot of flaws, but I also think not enough people kind of give credit where it is due toward the things it was actually trying to do, I suppose. Sure,
I think that's a fair enough assessment.
Mm-hmm. Because, I don't know, I think, how do I put this? There's a very prevailing attitude towards it that it's just kind of like trend chasing, but I don't think that's entirely fair. There's definitely some of that going on with some of the particular aesthetic choices, but overall, I think that those things did serve a purpose, and you can see what they're trying to do with them. For example, the gunplay, I believe, is actually rather well done for the most part.
I would say that's generous. It's functional.
Yeah, I mean, it works well enough. And I like the weapon variety as well, although I don't feel like the... what term would you use for, signposts and swords? I guess just,
melee weapons.
I don't know. Yeah. I feel like those are probably the weakest for me. The gun variety is good, but I also feel like functionally they kind of just work the same for the most part a lot of the time.
Aside from the very gimmicky ones, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the game itself is very much a collection of it being at odds with itself.
Yes. Go on.
You have the very slippery Sonic Heroes style 3D platforming and movement, but you also have firearms which require a degree of precision, but you can't really aim them except with your own butter on glass character.
Right.
So
yeah, I did think it was I've been going through and reading a bunch of interviews and stuff and just development history and that kind of stuff, and I think it was kind of interesting how I think it was Iizuka who talked about basically wanting to marry sort of this style of gunning action games with the Sonic style, platforming and speed and stuff. And on paper, I don't really think that sounds like a bad idea, but in execution, I think it's just kind of like you said, at odds with itself a lot of the time, where it's like it doesn't really know whether to ask you to slow down and like do a bunch of gunning or continue running through everything. And so a lot of the objectives kind of seem to get in the way of what the game wants to be doing. You have like these sections where it's like very clearly supposed to be like sonic loops and like dash pads and all these things, but then there's a wide open area with like 60 guys you got to kill, and it's like, all right, well, I guess I got to stop dead in my tracks and do this for a while.
Bayonetta did it better.
It kind of interrupts the tempo of the gameplay, and if the fighting was more dynamic. If it was a little more, as Kyle said, Bayonetta-esque, a little more Devil May Cry-esque, if it was as engaging and exciting as the high-speed sections, I feel like it would be better received. But those games came out after Shadow, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
and
I believe so.
I would almost say it kind of serves as an example of, here's what Sega tried to do first, didn't quite stick the landing, and then others looked at it and said, oh, wait, no, that's a neat idea. Let's refine it a little bit this way. I feel like we see that a lot in just Sega's history. Yeah, true. And now I'm actually kind of wondering, now that we've kind of like made a full loop around with sort of like the combat of like Frontiers and stuff, like, I mean, obviously I don't really think it's high on their priority list to like, oh, let's do Shadow the Hedgehog again, because it really went well the first time. But I do kind of wonder what that kind of like structure of a game would be like if it were fit into something more like that, like more open world, kind of have like those objectives littered around, that more dynamic combat. I think that could probably work. I agree, especially since Frontiers is built around your pace in a lot of ways. Whereas Shadow's game was, here is the high-speed section, and then here is the combat section, or here is the puzzle section, or here is the platforming section. It was much more compartmentalized. And Frontiers is much more interwoven with that gameplay. And the gameplay itself is designed to function in that open-ended space. And I think that compartmentalization is actually kind of the part that I struggled the most with while replaying it, because it was like individually some of these components felt either like good or bad at certain times. And it's like, I feel like if these were just merged a little bit better, then like it wouldn't be perfect, obviously, but it would still be a little bit more memorable. I feel like the best glimpse that you can get of this, and a lot of people talk about this, is in Lava Shelter. I feel like that's the best realized level in terms of how those ideas are merged together. Because you have the hero objective where you can just go to the end of the level with Omega, but then you also have the dark objective where you turn on the reactors, and it actually segments off like a different part of the level for you to access and makes it a little bit more challenging. And it's like, oh, I kind of wish that they did this more with the other stages. And if there's anything to be said for Shadow, is its ambition. You have multiple stage objectives in every stage, the multiple storylines, the multiple outcomes from that extremely complicated branching path, and the sheer variety of stage types. I mean, what was it called? Cosmic Fall? Yes, The Fall? Cosmic Fall. Or, well, yeah, it's Cosmic Fall. Just the concept of that stage alone is phenomenal. I really, really love it. Both from like just an aesthetic perspective, because all the arc levels look really good, but also from a theming perspective, I think it's really interesting. You have Shadow sort of like at his most mentally vulnerable, and then you literally have the arc, which is his place of birth, falling apart around him. It's very cool imagery.
I know there's a mod that fixes a lot of the problems with Shadow.
I think I've seen like some things about that on the side. I haven't given it a shot myself, but I mean, hey, after I finish this video, maybe that would be a good way to revisit the game in the future.
Yeah, I think it does a lot of the stuff to, fix as many of the problems as they can, considering it's a GameCube game originally. Well, multi-platform, but the GameCube game is the basis for the mod. So it really actually, from what I understand, it really does help it. So might not be something. Yeah, might be something worth checking.
Sounds
out.
Pretty cool. I did actually want to ask too, now that I was thinking about it, because you mentioned the multiple storylines. There is also sort of a prevailing attitude towards the story of the game, I think, where it's like people kind of regard a lot of the stories and different outcomes as like pretty much completely ancillary or like not that important because none of them are canon and there is a last story segment which is canon. How do you feel about that?
I am kind of in that boat since trying to nail down one path through is never going to be perfect. I also feel like it comes back to what we said before, is that the game seems to be at odds with itself, and the narrative tone, I think, is the biggest casualty of that. They wanted to do something darker and more mature, but still clearly tied to the Sonic IP, but it was its own thing branching out, but you got everybody here as the supporting cast, and that just doesn't quite jive. You need to pick a lane and stick to it. I think of the Yoshi Island series, that was born out of Mario. Yoshi was just an upgrade or a side grade. And then with the first Yoshi story game, Mario World 2, however the titles and subtitles hash out, it was still clearly Mario, but it was distinctly different visually and a wholly different mechanically. And that gave birth to a whole spin-off series, which is what they definitely wanted to try to do with Shadow. And having that running, gunning, platforming brawler could have been its own style, but it felt too much like, here's the hero's engine with some extra stuff stapled on.
Right.
Like the vehicles were not realized enough. The combat was not distinctive enough. The way it all flowed together was a little janky, and I think that kind of undercut it. Again, lofty ideals, and can't fault them for trying something different and risky, to be sure.
Oh, for sure.
But it didn't quite gel. But that may also have been with the kind of, you have to get it out by this fiscal quarter. Go. True.
I was about to say, because that was like, what, Heroes was 2003?
Yeah.
And then Shadow the Hedgehog was 2005. And then like right around the corner, they had like Riders in 06 already kind of like in the middle of being made. Like there was a lot going on at that time.
And 06 is perhaps the biggest tragedy of the holiday crunch. That game was not done. The team was
honestly,
not
like,
given enough time.
That game would have done plenty by itself. I think the fact that it came so shortly after Shadow 2 really did not do either of them any favors.
No, they needed more time for both of those.
Although I do want to go back to, somebody said this or earlier in the chat a little bit, because I this was kind of the attitude I had about some of the endings as well, because I did also kind of have that same attitude for the most part of like, I mean, none of these really happen, so like, does it really matter? But I do like this where it says the multiple endings are all plausible endings Shadow could have taken, but the true ending is the one that Shadow himself takes. And I did kind of develop that attitude towards it a little bit the closer I got to the end as well, because especially with like the characterization of like Black Doom and how he sort of just like takes all of these things that are very sensitive to Shadow and like presses the button, like the raw nerve over and over again, specifically to get the outcome that he wants. I think there is something a little bit interesting about how, when you really think about it, in a lot of the paths of the game, Shadow isn't really choosing what to do so much as he's just listening to what everybody else wants him to do. And so I think there is some meaning in the fact that, like, in the last story, you have the bit where Black Doom is like, hey, give me the Chaos Emerald Shadow. I'm going to use it to take over the world. And then you have Sonic walk up and he's like, hey, give me the Chaos Emerald Shadow. I'll use it to save the world like I always do. And Shadow's like, no, I'm going to use them for what I want to do. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with having side plots and alternate endings. Those are fun.
I mean, really, when you get down to it, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, just because they're not canon doesn't mean they're invalid completely. If you enjoyed the ride, then you got your entertainment. And that's what the game's supposed to do, is to entertain.
Yeah, what I was gonna say was like, I think the pure dark ending of Shadow the Hedgehog, really, when you get down to it, it's just like the Undertale bad ending of the Sonic franchise. And I mean, oh God, that reminds me. Okay, so we were recording some like me and my housemate were recording some of the multiplayer footage to use in the video as well yesterday. It was either yesterday or the day before, but so, are you aware? I'm sure you probably are, that if you play the single player with the second controller plugged in, you can control the companion character with the second controller.
Most of them, yes. I think it's
Yes.
Charmy and the Eggman monitor you can't control, sadly.
So we were doing that, and like, unfortunately, it's not particularly functional. It's kind of got the same problem as the co-op in like Sonic 2 and 3, where it's like the camera is always going to be following the first player, so the other person is unfortunately going to get off-screened every 1 second. But I thought it would be very funny. We were testing it with Westopolis, where, you know, obviously Sonic is the companion character. I was like, hey, can you attack the gun soldiers as Sonic? Sure enough, of course, yes, he can. So then I was like, what if we completed the dark objective, but I didn't do anything, and I just let you attack the gun soldiers as Sonic the entire time? And it was very funny to see the dark mission complete itself with Black Doom congratulating Shadow, as Shadow did nothing the entire time.
It's just like how Luigi. It's how Luigi wins in Smash by doing nothing.
The co-op cracked me up the worst when we had somebody playing Maria.
Oh God! Does she have can she fight?
Technically, yes. If you do her action button prompt, she has this open hand slap, and it goes.
Oh my God!
It has barely any range. I don't know if it actually does any damage, but there are at least 2 stages where Maria can go up to a soldier and say, what did the 5 fingers say to the face? Slap!
Oh, gosh. Maybe we need to go back and grab some footage of that. That would be hilarious. But, anywho, I think that's enough Shadow the Hedgehog for now. Although, on the topic of Shadow the Hedgehog, that reminds me of things that you might regret writing in the future. So that brings to mind sort of just like a general I don't know if advice is the right word, but I'm just curious about your thought process on this. As a writer, as somebody who has written a lot of things in your time, what do you think, how do I phrase this? How do you sort of deal with having written something that in the at an earlier point in your career that you're like, I could have done that a lot better, and it's something that people still harp on to this day?
There is a degree of lingering on past mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to learn from it. Look at it and understand why you wrote it that way then, and understand why you wouldn't do it now. It could be a matter of circumstances. It could be your personal worldview. It could be your skill level. It's, things change. Everything is mutable. And as for the critique, there is some degree of, yes, it is good to be reminded of where you've been,
mm-hmm.
and say, okay, yeah, kind of stubbed my toe there. Won't do that again. And this is not a Sonic fandom specific thing. This is
right.
Not even a comic books thing. This is fandom in general.
Mm-hmm.
Some folks just cannot let go or move on. There was this foible once, and that has become their defining personality trait.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's the slap or sports ball team B who blew it in the third back in 1973.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't even born then. Come on, man, move on. And that isn't to deflect critique, obviously.
Right.
If there was a gaffe, there was a gaffe. But at the same time, it's not worth lingering on unless you see this issue being repeated over and over again. But that's more of a critique of the stylistic choice or the writer's understanding of the material, or the licensor's oversight or whatever. That's not a singular issue we're talking about. That's a systemic thing.
Mhm.
But that's not what you're asking about.
Right. But yeah, I think that's generally good advice. It's just, honestly, a lot of it does just kind of boil down to, not to deflect criticism, as you said, but also it does just kind of come down to sometimes some people just aren't going to be happy with what you do regardless, and you just have to do your best.
That, and you have to, and this comes with time, but you need to learn how to appraise the critique you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody is bringing up something from 10 years ago out of the blue without any context of anything else, then they're just there to have a bad time. They want to feel superior by pointing out the bad thing or what they think is the bad thing. And you can kind of just safely write that off because they're not there to help you improve. They're not there to improve anything. They just want their sense of superiority. If someone brings up, I enjoyed this, or I have concerns about this recent thing because in the past you've done X, Y, and Z, I feel like this is a trend and I don't agree with it because of such and such. That's a dialogue. That's worth getting into. And it takes a lot more time and it's harder to initiate, but it's also much greater in value. So you have to be ready to be receptive to that. And you also have to be ready for folks that may have a valid point, but they lack the tools to express it. They may actually have a valid criticism. They just don't know the vocabulary necessary to fully explain what the issue is or why it is a concern, which, kind of falls upon you to do a little extra work, but you're all about self-improvement anyway. So why not?
Yeah, true. I mean, that's.
Hold on a second. Can I critique you right now, Ian, for saying Zed?
You should.
Look here. I've been up here for a while. I got my passport and everything.
Hey,
they say Zed. I'm going to say Zed.
Okay, fine. You say Zed. Whatever. Break the rhyme scheme of the alphabet. Be that way.
You say Dragon Ball Z?
No.
Okay.
And if you're playing Star Fox, you press L or Z twice.
Yes.
That's just how it goes.
I'm going to the Zedu to see the Zed.
Z or R. Z or R.
All right. That's enough.
Although,
that's enough.
Quick aside, since you brought it up, it was funny because the Lazy Boy furniture chain had a bit of trouble finding its footing because everyone called Lazy Boy, and it's like, what does that mean?
Well, he has lazed. He is no longer lazing. He has lazed.
There you go.
Lazy Boy.
It's somebody in the chat, the ZD from Sonic Lost World.
The ZD. Oh boy.
Gosh. Actually, I think that's kind of an interesting jumping off point. I mean, this is just my opinion, of course, so take it with a grain of salt. But speaking of writing regrets and improving upon them in the future, I think it is very interesting to me personally the journey that I have gone on with the characters of the Deadly Six, from thinking they're one of the most confusing nonsensical additions to the series, and then as they have gone on in the comics specifically, I'm like, yeah, okay, I can accept this. Although I do still think
I'm glad
in terms of that, I do still think Zavok is probably the most well fleshed out personally, but that's just because he was the one who had the most character in general of any of them anyway.
Yeah. Part of it too is because Zavok has a range. He can go from 0 to 10 to 20 to 30. Everyone else is, at 100% all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So by comparison, having any degree of nuance makes Zavok more interesting.
Yeah, true.
The Deadly Six are honestly some of my least favorite elements of the Sonic franchise. I am in no rush to see them come back in any shape or form, but they are an element of the series, and they did bring an interesting degree of menace to Metal Virus, and
Yes.
they served their purpose in Zeddy Hunt, and I think we've explored them sufficiently, at least for now.
I think, actually, I think like Bad Guys is probably my favorite Zeddy content, quote unquote. Just for like the dynamic that Zavok has with the other villains, and like how he can see straight through what Starline is. It reminds me of that. Do you remember the SpongeBob clip where they like are trying to deliver, or is it the pizza episode or no? Yes, it is the pizza episode, I think. Or no. Scratch that. It's the one where they're trying to get to work before each other, like, and set earlier and earlier alarms, and they like do the like, oh yes, may the best man win, and they're shaking each other's hands, and like in their head they're thinking about like what a tool the other one is. I don't know how much SpongeBob you've watched, but I've been watching some. Oh, okay. I've been watching a lot of the older SpongeBob content again recently because me and my housemate both grew up watching the initial seasons, and that's just kind of been a nice background thing to do. Speaking of growing up with things, the 30th anniversary of Sad AM was recent.
Yeah. Make me feel old, why don't you?
30 years.
Well, hey, I mean, I was watching reruns of it when I was like 5 or something, probably.
I was watching it when it was new when I was 5.
Yeah.
Like,
I haven't seen. I know that there's like a recent like fan reanimated collab that came out recently, which I think that would be really cool to check out, but I haven't gotten the chance to yet. But yeah, a great show. I think honestly, like looking back on it, the more I like rewatch it, the more I realize how like pretty solid it is overall. Very like well constructed.
Yep.
I feel like it kind of lost its footing just a tiny bit whenever they had those like mandated short like half episodes in the second season. And also like what was going on with Antoine's redesign.
Yeah, not fond of that, to be honest. Not really fond of season 2 Rotor either.
Yeah,
he's
that one was
more
also
on
strange.
brand, but I don't know.
Didn't he also have a different voice in the second season too?
yeah.
Oh shoot! Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was a different voice actor or it was just the same voice actor doing a different voice. I don't remember, but
Yeah,
I think
but
it's a
I do remember
different
it
voice actor.
sounding strange.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like he wasn't bad. Obviously, it was just kind of a jarring shift. But yeah, honestly, I do miss it. But at the same time, it's one of those things where it's like, I mean, you know, things come and go. Nothing lasts forever. C'est la vie. But I do look forward in any capacity to seeing the characters again, whether it be unofficial or official, at some point in the future.
I mean, hope springs eternal for them to be revalidated within the main series, but even if that ship has well and truly sailed, the fandom will keep them alive.
Mm-hmm. And that's the most important thing, I think.
Yeah.
That devotion has been proven time and again.
Mm-hmm. So why do you hate them, Ian?
Why do you hate the freedom fighters, Ian? Why do you hate Sally?
Want them to disappear?
You see, since I'm king of Sega, that means I hate all the fans and what they enjoy.
Yeah, that's actually how they induct you into the position. You know, they sit you down in the chair, they give you your little pin that has your name on it or whatever, and then like in small text under that, it's like manager in charge of hating everything.
Hating
it's
every
like a Care Bear episode. I have to put all my love into one little jar and then put it in the back room on a back shelf and lock the door.
Yeah, you have to purge all of your affection for the franchise.
Absolutely.
Hate
everything everyone else loves. It's true. That's it. That's how it goes.
I have like a little thing written of like just possible things I wanted to talk about. So this is just kind of like I have no transition for this. I've been trying to think of clever transitions for my topics, but I just got nothing here. We're just gonna have to freewheel this one. But that being said, I'm sure you've probably gotten questions about this before, but as like a general interesting topic, I was wondering your attitude towards like balancing your passion projects with your work projects, because I've definitely encountered that struggle more and more lately.
Yeah, I don't have a good rule of thumb for that, in large part because being freelance, I have no schedule.
True.
You say, what's your schedule? And I laugh politely. It's, a few months ago, I barely had time to do the laundry or eat. I had so much on my plate, so many clients needing stuff now. And then, this past month, I've been largely free to do what I want to do. I made huge progress with Drogoon and actually sat down and played a video game. Went outside, got back on my exercise regimen. It was like, oh, I'm human again.
Yeah. Congrats for that too.
Thank you. There was a time in the times where there's a few clients, but there's also a little bit of downtime, or the deadlines are not looming.
Mm-hmm.
I find that the passion projects are a good way to revitalize. So you have the client who wants whatever, and you just are not in the mood for it. You cannot make yourself care. You've got something else you can do productive that you do care about and that you want to accomplish. So instead of sitting there glaring at the word processor saying, I don't want to do this right now, do what you want to do, and you feel creative and fulfilled and you accomplish something. And then on the flip side, you hit that roadblock, the writer's block, and you're like, this isn't working. I'm really frustrated with this because it's a personal failure. Why is this not coming together like I want it to? You know what? I need to take a break. I actually have the structure for this client. I have my marching orders. I know what they want from me. I have an actual deadline. We're just going to get it done. And that funnels your creativity in a different way. It helps keep the synapses firing. Mm-hmm. So if you can find that kind of balance, I thought that worked out pretty well. You're not going to be able to produce as much with the passion project because obviously you need to spend time doing the work you're being paid for. But it is kind of rewarding creatively to switch gears.
Mm-hmm. I definitely have had like a little bit of a weird time with that, especially just because of what I do specifically, where it's like, because I do YouTube, I can still kind of like, it's still incumbent on me to choose what I am talking about and like what I make content about. But also at the same time, it's like kind of finding that balancing act of like, what's something that I would enjoy talking about, but is also not so niche that it will drive my entire audience away. Like, I can't just talk about the like random visual novel or manga from like 2003 that I like that nobody else cares about. Like, I have to find something in my repertoire of interests that is relatively safe to discuss.
Well, once you've garnered enough of an audience, and this is speaking from the experience of someone who views others and their video essays and whatnot, once you've garnered enough of an audience, you can start to branch out into those passion topics. And once you've cultivated enough of followership that likes your take on things and wants to just hear you talk about things, you'll see a little bit of movement in that direction, a bit of support.
And actually, in that sense, I was just going to say, in that sense, Sonic is actually kind of one of those things that it's like taking a little bit of a risk on, because my audience doesn't actually seem to care that much about Sonic.
Really?
Yeah. I found much more success talking about like visual novels and stuff.
Huh.
Like your Danganronpas and your Ace Attorneys and stuff.
Well, good for you.
Well, I mean, Danganronpa's like, it's big though, to be fair.
And just as well, maybe not just as rowdy as the Sonic fandom, but I am reminded sometimes while talking about Danganronpa of why I do not interact with fandoms that often. I mean, I kid. Well, not everybody's a good sport, but most people are good sports.
Oh, sure. And, you want to have a passionate fan base, because if it's apathetic, that's the death of your product.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody mentioned Adventure Time in the chat, and that's also actually something that I've been getting back into recently. Though I haven't seen Fiona and Cake yet.
I am not familiar. I have not watched Adventure Time in the slightest.
Have you, Ian?
Not for any reason other than I just haven't. There's just so many things that I have not watched. So.
I've seen bits and pieces,
Mm-hmm.
and some lore explanations here and there. Thinking, oh, maybe with a little bit of context, this will make more sense. Oh, that was a lie.
Yeah.
So I don't even want to approach Fiona and Cake until I have a better grounding in Adventure Time itself, because I feel like a lot of you need that foundation. Even if Fiona and Cake is standalone, I feel like it's going to be a reflection of what came before. To some degree.
Definitely. I've actually been like in my spare time, which is read here very little. In my spare time, I've been trying to like rewatch through the entire original show so that I can watch Fiona and Cake as a nice little reward for myself once I get through that. And that's been fun. It's a very arduous task considering there's so much of it, but it's never an unpleasant viewing experience. So
it's a show you can't just coast through, though. It's not like something you can go, oh, this is entertaining, I'll roll with it, because it will not be gentle. It will
not at
go completely non sequitur, bizarro stuff at you that will be funny and horrifying at the flip of a switch. And then you'll get stuff like the flashback episode where you see Simon back when he was Simon, and Marceline when she was little, and it's like, whoa, this is a completely different show.
Actually, in particular, I don't know if my name gives any pointers, but I was deeply affected by Marceline's character specifically. That one's always stuck with me.
So what is it like being a vampire?
Yeah, well, I the trade secrets, I can't talk too much about it.
Okay, fair enough. I do promise to leave your fries alone, though.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I actually did just eat some fries earlier, so hey, there you go.
That's because I didn't touch them. I know better.
True. Although that did remind me, because we were talking about, something that, well, you said that you can't just like leisurely coast through Adventure Time, but that reminded me of something that I can always leisurely coast through, and it is a mutual interest that we all share here, and that is Homestar Runner.
There we go.
Yeah, now I'm in. What Homestar?
Yeah, I actually like last year, I think it was, just went through and like rewatched every single Strong Bad email over again.
Oh wow.
And it never gets any easier getting to the end of them and thinking, well where's the next one?
Maybe someday.
Although they did have that one animation. What was it, it was sometime last year, right?
It's like yeah. Within the last couple of years, they've been doing a few different things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was the one I'm like vaguely remembering it now, where it's like Strong Bad taking like lessons on how to take care of a child.
Yeah,
with everybody, and like Coach Z gives them a bag of pudding to take care of.
I've been taking care of this one for 6 years.
Who is your favorite Homestar character besides Strong Bad?
They're like my children's. I can't pick just one. I don't know, like they're all consistently solid in the roles that they play. Okay, it's got to be Marshy when you get down to it.
Really?
Marshy, for all the surrealist nonsense that Homestar Runner does, Marshy manages to stand out.
Yeah,
he's used
that's true.
Very sparingly, and when he's used, it's horrible, and that's just exquisite. Like there was a time where
that's a good way to put it.
I could quote the Halloween commercial almost verbatim.
Oh god.
For a while. It's just that manic, barely contained sociopath with a smile that you have to laugh because otherwise you're going to scream.
Oh, now I'm just thinking of. I wonder if anybody out there makes like replications of the Ghibli's photo, like in the frame.
Ghibli.
Like whip that
Well,
one
here's the
out for
thing.
Halloween.
Like the official Twitter still interacts with folks every now and again.
Hmm.
And there's somebody who does a like seasonal cross stitch of Marshy and Strong Battle riff on it whenever they post it. Recently somebody made a Homestar Runner in Armored Core 6. And Strong Bat's like, why isn't the real Homestar like this? We could be riding into battle. You could be Iron Gianting me around in the Gremlin. It'd be great.
No, I don't think I would trust Homestar with that kind of weaponry.
He's too.
You probably shouldn't trust Strongbad with that kind of weaponry either.
Also true.
Hey, now he's fully licensed for that gun chuck.
True.
But
like we're going to have to
produce like
jump.
they used to. They don't produce like they used to, but they're still interacting with folks because I think they've come to realize that they have created a pillar for a generation.
For sure. Although it's too bad about Flash.
Yeah,
But they still
technically.
got some great jokes out of that.
True.
Technically, yeah, it sucks, but it's surprisingly they've managed to keep it around in spite of itself. Like the
Whether
whole
through, like web, what is it, like WebM3 or
Ruffle is the main one.
yeah,
I
and
believe.
Ruffle.
Yeah, which is like that's actually really cool, and I'm glad that Homestar Runner found a way to keep itself up and going despite the death of Flash, technically. So
We actually
That's really
went bowling for my friend's birthday the other day, and one of our friends put in Trogdor as their name on the bowling display thing.
good.
So it's alive and well.
way back in the day. I remember walking around campus and the intramural teams for, I think it was soccer, had their team names up there, and one was the Trogdors, one was the Fahugu Gods. There were at least two other ones, like Burning Peasant or something like that. And it's like, wow, we're all nerds and we are all drinking from the same Kool-Aid.
Actually, you know the strangest place I ever saw like Homestar mention?
What's that?
I went to a funeral as a child and saw a Homestar bumper sticker on somebody's car in the parking lot of the funeral.
I was worried it was going to be like a Homestar Runner themed funeral. I thought this was going to go like way harder. I was worried. I'm glad it was just.
She's not dead.
I'm so glad that she is
But
not
this guy
dead.
right here, he's not dead. But that guy, he's seriously dead. That guy right there's dead.
I felt a little bad because I had never met somebody who liked Homestar Runner in real life at that point, and so I was deeply curious. I was like, who here can I talk to about this? But then I was like, well, I shouldn't talk to somebody about this at a funeral.
Not
I mean,
the
who
appropriate
knows?
Times in network, no.
I guess not.
No. I want to like pull them aside during like their emotional speech about their family member and be like, so what's your favorite Strongbound email? Yeah, Strongset does an interpretive dance at the funeral. True.
I gotta say, I love the cheat commandos.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Classic. God.
Didn't they have some action figures for the Cheat Commandos? for a
Yes,
while?
yes, I did. Ian has them, I believe.
I need some of those. I need just like merch in general. For the longest time when I was watching Homestar, I was too young to be buying merch, but now I rent a house. So, well, I mean, I probably shouldn't be spending my money on Homestar merch, but I could theoretically.
Hey, Ian, you there? Did you die? Did you cut out?
I guess we're going to be going to Ian's funeral with the Homestar bumper sticker.
We might be. Yeah, I think he conked out on him.
Yep.
Yeah, there we go.
Yep.
It was mid-sentence, even.
Well, that was when no one was laughing at all my hilarious jokes. Oh, well.
You could still say them. We may laugh now.
No. The moment is gone.
Oh, okay.
And it looks like our time might be about gone too, actually.
Just
Well,
about.
time flies when we're having fun.
Yeah, sure does.
Now, before we wrap up, tell everyone where they can find you and all your wonderful works.
Sure. You can find my video essays at youtube.com/NezumiVA. That's NezumiVA. And you can find me at the same on Twitter, Tumblr, whatever else. I'm sure you'll find me under that username. I also have an email at NezumiVA@gmail.com if you want to contact me about voice acting projects, because I do those as well.
Most excellent. Kyle, any closing thoughts?
No. Thanks, Nezumi, for coming on the show and talking with us for a while. It's great having you here.
It was a blast. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. Everyone else, be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and we will see you next time on the BumbleKast.
See you next time.
Awesome. We'll get started here once I've cleared out the cobwebs.
Yeah.
Oh, stop giving me that look, cat. You heard me do this before. You're talking cheat commandos, and the one bit that lives rent-free in my head and comes up unbidden is when they go to meet the Doppelgangers.
Yeah.
Which is by far too cool a name for this thing to have. And they go riding off into the battle on this hodgepodge boat thing called the Ramshankle. And the theme song kicks in with, "It's the Ramshankle, and you know darn well, it's made of vehicles that we couldn't sell."
Yeah.
And I can't think of it, but I'm so certain there was an actual G.I. Joe vehicle that was that, just assorted pieces crammed together. And oh, my God.
Like as a figure?
Yeah, like it's a legit product. I'm so certain that actually exists, but I don't know enough about G.I. Joe to say.
Yeah, I don't know anything about G.I. Joe aside for knowing is half the battle.
Half the battle is blue laser, the other half is red laser.
Those low prices, they could build a machine that turns monkeys into gold or makes it snow at the beach. But what about beach volleyball? There won't be any beach volleyball, soldier.
Good old crack stuntman. I love that name. Crack stuntman.
So many good names.
I know.
The fact that it was a spoof to begin with, and then Crack himself turned into his own gimmick.
Spoof, yes.
God.
It's amazing. So many layers. It's too deep, man. This Homestar Runner goes too deep.
I do think one of the best things about it for me was just like, there are so many jokes that were able to appeal to me as a child, and then even the ones that flew over my head, whether they were like just a little bit too complicated or like referring to something that I didn't know about because I didn't understand all of the references, my parents would usually get those for me. So then they would have their laugh. It was a nice joint enjoyment experience. There was a better word for that, but it didn't occur to me.
I just like that there's one named Silent Rip. You've been listening to the BumbleKast, a co-production of Bumble King Comics and the KNGI Network. Original theme music composed by Ken Coda Snyder. Remixed intro by T-Lopes. Find out more information, along with podcast feeder links, MP3 downloads, and more at bumbleking.com and kngi.org. Alrighty. Well, Frontiers thing is happening soon.
Yes,
That's
yes.
scams.
I have to be ready for
Scary.
that.
1 hour.
I'm scary, Ian. Should I be scary?
And also, congratulations once again, Ian, for that.
Thank you very much. I have all the apprehension of the game launch all over again.
Yeah, understandable.
Everyone had super high expectations the first time, and now they're even higher. So, panic.
Yeah,
panic.
yeah. I'm wondering how much content is here. There's
multiple
going to
playable
be.
characters is definitely something to be anxious about, because I mean, like, I'm excited for it, but also at the same time I'm like, oh, are they up to the task?
It's been a while. It's been a while.
Just looking at, because I've not actually seen any of the gameplay. I sent in the script and that was it. So this is very new for me. Like, I saw thoughts about what they were going to do with everybody. And looking at the teaser trailer, it went even more ambitious than the design doc I was shown.
Ooh.
So they went all out on this. It's kind of crazy, the amount of effort going into this.
That's wild. I'm surprised because it's free
It looks
DLC. Like it's a free expansion.
exactly.
Like why'd they go so hard on free DLC, Ian?
Well, I don't know. Part of it is because of how Nintendo handles downloadable content and such.
And also probably because the game did really well. That probably helped.
I mean, part of that too. But the amount of stuff that I know about for this, I would have paid $20 to get.
Oh yeah!
It's a beefy DLC.
I mean, I think even just the addition of the spin dash alone was probably worth some money.
I mean, everything that they've done so far, I'd pay $5 for. That's fun, cosmetic challenges and whatnot. But this DLC, this is, unless you're like dedicated playing through it as fast as possible, it's going to be a few hours at least.
Oh, okay. Ian, have you played any of the Splatoon games?
Yeah.
Okay, so is it like, I'm just asking for frame of reference, this is like an Octo expansion in your mind?
Again, I've not actually played it. I don't know how it's paced out, but in terms of content, I'd say, yeah, probably comparable. At least in terms of like music and story content.
Yeah, I mean,
wow.
For me, that's enough of a selling point already. So
I think I'd say that's a reasonable comparison between the two. I'm also interested because there was one particular point that doesn't look like it made it from script to finished product. So I'm wondering how that was massaged and what else might be a little different than what I submitted.
Because we're just going to have to wait and see what you can and can't talk about later.
Yeah. But I'm not really rankled about it because the turnaround time on this would have been so tight. I don't think they would have had time to, hey, Ian, we need to adjust this for blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, just go. Just freaking go.
Understandable. Because, I mean, they want to do the best they can do.
Like, think about it. It took them, 5-6 years to do Frontiers. Whole new engine, whole new game style, all that. And then in less than a year, they're adding 3 wholly different characters.
Yeah.
To work in
That's the part that stunned me the most. Because when I remember hearing initial rumors about that, and I was thinking, no, there's no way that they can do that. But here we are.
Yeah.
And again, more ambitious than I thought they were going to do. So I'm honestly excited to see what this is.
For sure.
And also, I know the story content, so ha.
Yeah,
well, how much did you?
Enough.
How much did you retcon, Ian?
Who did you get rid of? Due to your burning hatred for all things Sonic.
Let's just say you're going to be very happy if you enjoyed Shadow the Hedgehog 2005.
What? Oh no!
Black Doom is coming back.
Yeah, that's the very finale. The rocks fall, everybody dies, and then Shadow just steps on the graves. It's like, it's my turn now.
Finally.
Finally.
You know what? Whatever.
Marshy swoops in. Boogity boogity, I'll be your chip.
Oh no.
To Kyle's great delight, we've finally gotten rid of Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, good. He's finally dead. We still have Shadow, though. Got to take care of that guy.
Well, I mean, one step at a time.
Exactly. Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, but real.